This is StoryCounty.News. I'm Cory Brada. I'm joined by a country music legend, another one. Bryan White is with us, and we know everybody here in Story County is looking forward to Bryan and Wade Hayes' appearances here in actually Nevada, coming up in just a few days on Saturday, May 22nd. And first of all, Bryan, welcome. And I have to ask you this. I asked Wade the same question just about a week ago. The pandemic has been rough on everybody. I know you've got a lot of loved ones around you. So how have you dealt with the past 14 months or so? And have you guys been able to weather it okay?
By the grace of God, we are all doing good. My family's doing good. Thanks for asking. I think it kind of leveled the playing field for all of us. I think we collectively, my family, all of us kind of went through every emotion you can possibly go through, from extreme fear to extreme joy, so but I will say this, God sustained us through all of it. And I know a lot of people had some really traumatic things happen. We did our part to try to help as many people as we could. But there were some really great little silver linings out of it. I think it brought my family and I closer to each other, and in a way that may not have happened otherwise. I mean, it kind of in that time where we all sort of had to hunker down and be home and all that, we had to sort of be creative and get outside, go to the park, whatever. But we did it together as a family. And funny how sometimes those things happen and they bring us together in a really good way. So I would say it definitely brought my family and I together in a lot closer. Not that we weren't before, but just a little closer.
Absolutely. What's it like being able to know you're obviously things are improving here, and things can take the turn for the worse. But as far as being able to get back out there and perform, what does that feel like for you as a musician?
Cory, it's great. I think I started working at the end of January. I think it was either the end of January or the beginning of February on this particular tour that I've been on with several artists, Wade being one of them, Daryl Worley, Andy Griggs. And I remember the first date back, and it was kind of an overwhelming experience because I think it collectively among all of us on stage, we just kind of had that look, like we looked at each other and it was like, well, almost we could read each other's minds. We were at that moment, we were like, I don't know if we've ever been more grateful to be up here than we are right now. So it's been really wonderful to be working again, wonderful to be playing music, wonderful to be seeing fans. And I think it feels finally starting to feel strangely familiar again,
Yeah, and what's great about this is you have all these different shows that you're able to do, and a lot of these communities, this is their first return to normal in a sense. So you're certainly going to get that in Story County later this week. I do want to talk about this is sort of a get to know Bryan White segment. I do want to talk about your upbringing. You're from Oklahoma, so talk about your upbringing and how you got into country music, and certainly Nashville and just the whole journey for you.
Well, I'll try to give you a flyby really quick without dragging it on too long. But my great grandmother on my dad's side was a square dance caller, so she sang and traveled the country calling square dances. So I actually have records of her singing, and then on my mom's side, my grandmother, my mom's mom, was a songwriter and a singer as well. She did all of these barn dances up the West Coast, and I've got some recordings of those as well. Not as good as my great grandmother's recordings, but so it goes back a little ways for me. My mom and dad were musicians. They were kind of I'd say kind of the forerunners of the family. Everybody else kind of stuck to what they felt most secure doing, and that was either farming or picking cotton or raising cattle or being an auctioneer. That was kind of the trade either, what really across the board on both sides of the family. But my mom and dad were like, no, we're going to play music. And whether we make any money at it for a while or not, we're going to go after it. And so I think I kind of got it honest from my parents. They were passionate about it. They made, multiple efforts when we were kids. My brother and I were kids to try to attain a record deal or a publishing deal, so they were going to LA and Nashville but for whatever reason, it's so hard to put your finger on things sometimes why certain things didn't happen for people. But I think there was a constant pull from my parents to prioritize their kids more than anything. So it ended up kind of coming down to, man, we got to do what's right for our kids, and we can still play music. We just may not be able to really go fully after it. And so, as my mom says, and then here you come skipping down the same path a few years later. And then, I moved to Nashville when I was, I don't think you were even born yet, Cory. Let's see, 92. I moved there in 92 and to pursue a recording career. And here we are. That's kind of a very quick outline of it. But, I came from really good people, salt of the earth people. Oklahoma is where I'm from. A lot of my mom's side of the family was Arkansas and parts of Texas. And so I come from, I like to say, good stock, meaning good people, salt of the earth folks. So why can't I be as lucky as those other people? I guess I must be wishing on someone else's star.
So one of the things that fascinates me about you and Wade being together now, this show, is just the fact that someone else's star hit #1 just months apart from Old Enough to Know Better. I mean, you guys were absolute legends in '94, and that was just a huge year for both of you. And so I want to ask you about that song, Someone Else's Star. I asked Wade the same question about Old Enough to Know Better. You obviously have had numerous #1 hits, but that song was really sort of what launched you. Maybe I'm being presumptuous in saying that, but what did that song mean to you? And had that song not taken place, how do you think your career may have changed?
It's always tough to say. I have no idea what would have happened had that not gone #1. It means a lot to me. I'm still very much in touch with one of the songwriters, a guy named Skip Ewing. Jim Weatherly doesn't get a lot of credit for being a co-writer on that song, but a lot of people don't realize Skip wrote 3 or 4 #1s for me, but for Someone Else's Star, Jim Weatherly co-wrote it with him. And Jim Weatherly, for most people that don't realize, he wrote a ton of hits. He wrote A Lady Like You for Glenn Campbell, Neither One of Us for Gladys Knight and the Pips, and Midnight Train to Georgia. Wrote a ton of things with Vince. And so I'm eternally grateful to both of those gentlemen for co-creating that song. And it was one of those songs that when I heard it, I heard the demo, and I just instantly, I just gravitated toward it. It was like it was really felt like it was meant to be. Songs like that were what I wanted to portray sound wise, and I felt like they were songs that. That was one in particular was one I felt like, kind of in a weird, selfish way. It felt like it kind of belonged to me. It felt almost like it was written for me, because I was kind of, at that place in my life where I was starting to I was like, man, am I ever going to find somebody, that kind of a thing. And so it was, it was a very personal song to me, but the melody was awesome. And I just, I was really grateful that one fell in my lap.
And, it's funny you mentioned that, because my next note was Skip Ewing. And obviously he had a big role. Rebecca Lynn, I know that was your second #1. So I guess I won't take that further, but as far as Skip, what appealed to you about his style, and maybe what's your background? How did you get to know Skip?
You hear people say, if somebody would have told me this and this would have happened 5-10 years from that moment, I would have said, you're crazy. But all that to say, I I was buying Skip's records when I was when I was 14, 15 years old, listening to Skip in my bedroom and just marveling at his guitar playing, his singing, I was already a big fan. I had no idea that that guy would play such a huge role in the success of my career. So I have such an admiration for him. I'm grateful to say that he is a friend of mine, and we've actually written together. And he is one of those guys that through that decade for country music, I think he was a real powerhouse, and he was just being himself. He was just doing what he does best, you know.
And it's funny talking about someone else. Going back to Wade Hayes, I asked him about your relationship, and he said that kind of growing up, you guys really didn't know each other. I know you were both Oklahoma boys, but he said the first time he heard you, he just went, "Wow, this guy's amazing." So what is your story? Maybe your side of your first interactions. I mean, obviously you guys were both really young back in 94, 95, but what do you remember when you first met Wade Hayes or heard his stuff?
I'll be 100% honest, and I'll tell you, Wade knows this because I tell him this all the time. I was a little bit intimidated by Wade because he was so talented, and when you're coming out at the same time, there's always a crop of folks that are close to your age, and they've got something going, and you feel like you've got something to prove. But I just thought Wade was great, and I was so jealous because his first single, his first record sounded so good. I was just like, man, I want to have drum sounds like that. My drum sounds don't sound that good, and man, he was such a great guitar player, and it was just such a great first single. I envied him so much because he's such a great artist, but just the energy of his first single, it intimidated me. I was like, man, I'll even say it kind of challenged me to kind of go to the next level with my records. I think he had such a great team and great folks producing his record that he came out really strong, and I was an immediate admirer of his talent.
Would you guys? I know he kind of used that term, but would you consider your guys to be competitors back then? I mean, you guys had you still do, obviously, such a different sound, but you're both country. So what was that like?
Well, I think you again, back to, we were all young bucks, and we had something to prove. And so I would say there was a level of competitiveness in all of us, not just Wade and I, but kind of all that young crop that was coming up. We all, we were probably just a little bit of fear, we wanted to, but also on the other side, we had that angst, and we had something to prove. And so I'd say, yeah, there was a level of competition, but not in any sort of unhealthy way. It was all good. We were all super supportive of each other, but we all wanted to do good. We wanted to, and I think when you've got a level of competition, if you respond to it the right way, it grows you, it makes you better,
No. So after your fourth studio album, you took a hiatus, if you will, from, I guess, writing and your music career. What happened during that time period? I mean, I know a little bit of background, but can you explain what was going on in your life at that point?
Yeah, it's still a little bit hard to explain because I feel like I'm still trying to figure a little bit of it out. But and I haven't really talked at length about it very often. Of course, I've not really been afforded the chance to do so, but I'd say probably at the end of this tour I did in '98 with Leanne Rimes, I had started kind of there was a number of things that kind of happened. My label got shut down from the powers that be in New York City, and so that was a big crusher for me. We kind of got a lot of the artists got pushed over to Warner Brothers, and we didn't really have a relationship with Warner Brothers. We had built this really strong unit there at Asylum Records, and we were proud of that because we worked hard, with radio tours, and all of a sudden we don't have any money anymore, and so they're bumping us over to Warner Brothers. And some of that happened. I started dealing with some second guessing. I was like, man, well, is this record not good enough or whatever? And I started kind of struggling vocally. And, long story short, the vocal thing sort of perpetuated a little bit. And it caused me to, I think exhaustion was part of it. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to slow down. I didn't know how to say no to anybody at that time. I was so young, kind of perpetuated the fear and the anxiety. And then, once, one little thing sets in up here, it just keeps like a snowball. And I got to where I was really struggling vocally on stage. And so after I finished out the following year, I felt like I really needed to step away, just to stop singing for a while and reconnect with myself and try to, remind myself of what I got into this for. It's something that I love, and I'm not loving it right now. It's feeling like a grind. And so I did that. I really did a lot of major soul searching. Not to sound trivial or cheesy or anything, but I found during that, I found a really, really authentic relationship with God, because, it's a lot of us, when we meet, when the rubber meets the road in terms of faith for us, sometimes we have to be kind of scared to death before we respond in a real way. And that was kind of me. When you lose something that that you express yourself with so well, and I feel like I was a very natural singer and a good singer. And when that sort of, you find yourself not being able to connect the dots, or your diaphragm's not working, or whatever it was, it's scary, and so I knew no other way than just to look up and say, I need help, and during that time, I found this amazing woman from Tulsa, who we met in Los Angeles, and we got married and started a family in a lot of that time off, and a lot of that re-inspired me, and it kind of lifted me out of the darkness, and I started getting creative again and started making music. And I guess you could call it a hiatus. I didn't really ever take a ton of time off. I think I'd go crazy if I did, but I'd say there was a period of time, maybe 2 years, where not super active, but it just took a few things. You just kind of unplugging and looking up and my family, starting a family, and all those things sort of started reigniting me and getting me excited about, because all of a sudden I had all these amazing things I wanted to write about. And so I just started jumping back in and getting serious about making music again. So here we are.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. And I know we talked before we came on here that again, I don't mean to parallel everything with Wade's life, but the early 2000s were a battle for him at times. So again, I think it's just a great storyline heading into the show Saturday. And speaking of the show Saturday, you're going to be running in the Run Country Fest and 5K, the actual run. So talk about your background in running. Has that been a bit of a therapy for you? And what are you looking forward to running through Nevada on Saturday?
Well, to backtrack just a little bit, it's funny how struggles do connect you with people. And I would say mine and Wade's struggles and things that we have dealt with in the early 2000s, they've connected us in a way that I don't know that we would have been connected before. And I think it's made mine and Wade's relationship super. I really savor my relationship with Wade. I appreciate him. Not that I didn't before, but sometimes when those things happen and you find that common ground, there's an empathy and a camaraderie. And I feel like Wade is one of those people that would have my back in anytime I needed him. And I hope that he feels the same way. And so it's been, there's so many good things that happen out of our struggles if we just, see them, if we can recognize them. But one of the things, my brother invited me, he called me one day and he said, I got an offer for you. The Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon wants some post. They want to book an artist for their post entertainment for the race. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And he goes, so let's run it. And, Russ run the half marathon. And I laughed and I said, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. No way. I hate running. So long story short, I won't go into detail, but he, coaxed me into getting a great pair of shoes and I started training with him. Long story short, we ran the half marathon and just something clicked from that day on. I've been a runner for 9 years, and we were talking about mental health before the interview started. And I will say this, in terms of having tools that help me to navigate through life, mental health wise, I don't know that there's been, man, I won't say it's the strongest one, because I obviously have to say my faith is the strongest, but running has saved my life in a lot of ways. It's a tool that I have that I can always kind of undo whatever's going on up here. I can always go run. I never would have told you in a million years, yeah, one day I'm going to run 26.2 in Minneapolis and Savannah and all these, Chicago and all these. I would have never thought that of me in a million years, but it just became part of me. And it's about physical stuff, of course, but I would say running is more vital to me mentally than anything. So I'm excited to be running Saturday.
We're excited to see you there. And you are also, I have to ask you this from a personal standpoint, you also began a podcast, which I find fascinating. And how did that come about?
I've had a lot of friends ask me about doing one, and I, kind of passed it off. And I have a friend here in Nashville that I guess his words were maybe more tantalizing than everybody else's, but a few things that he said that kind of made me go, okay, maybe we should do this, and he actually produced the first 4 episodes and helped me put it together. And I think there's something about having real conversations with people in my line of work. And I think that's what fans want to hear the most. Like you said, they want to see the human side of all of these people. Because really, again, so many people see what we do as heightened and on a pedestal. But when all the lights go off and the show's over, we've all got to go take the trash out and pay our bills and go to the dentist and it's just,
yeah.
It is just a job at the end of the day. And sometimes it feels like a job. It's not always that way. I mean, we love it, but it's, it has, it is a very, very tough business, and it has so many ups and downs, and it's sometimes hard to navigate through all of it. But I love it. And it's been a blast so far. So
I want to end with some kind of quick hitter questions, Bryan. And if
Sure.
you want to expand on one of them, you can, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So I know we can go through your chart history and whatnot, maybe the fans' perspective. What do you view as your number one hit?
What do I view as my number one hit? Not to take away from someone else's star, but I think I feel like a lot of people, as far as diehard Bryan White fans, sort of see Rebecca Lynn as synonymous with who I am as an artist. I think so. I would probably say Rebecca Lynn.
Ring around the rosy, pocket full of dreams and poses. Patty cake, the baker's man, tag your rip, kick the can.
That was always the song growing up, man. That was always the song growing up. In fact, we have a good friend who's named, her name's, we call her Becky. Her middle name's Lynn, so we always gave her a hard time about that. But
that's awesome.
I would probably agree with that. Now, favorite song to perform at this point in your life?
Wow. I've always loved singing "Love Is the Right Place." It's a great melody. It kind of allows me to soar and have fun vocally. And it kind of is one of those songs that as years have gone by and I've grown up a lot, and struggles and good and kids and life, messages like "Love is the right place," that's what I want to sing about. It's still very inspiring to me today.
Love rings on and on. Wow, wow, wow. Hey, love is the right place. Took me a while to get it started.
So that's one of them. There's a song that I do live now that it wasn't a hit for anybody. It's been recorded by several people, but it's a song called "Amen" that I just love. It's fun to sing, and if I'm having a day where I've had 3 or 4 shows under my belt and I'm struggling a little bit, if for some reason it's one of the few songs that I can always sing no matter what. If I'm have a cold or sick or something, if something happens when I sing "Amen," it just I just kind of blow through it, and it's always fun. So,
all right, that works for me. Biggest influencer in your career, maybe country artist, or maybe it's not even the music industry, maybe family member. Biggest influencer for you overall?
My biggest musical influence is a guy named Steve Warner. Steve, I tell people all the time, I don't think I would even be here. I wouldn't be here talking to you if it weren't for Steve's music. He was the first person that I just heard his tone and his phrasing and his guitar playing, and I saw him as first time I saw him. It was kind of one of those moments where I went, man, this guy encapsulates what it's like. I mean, this is the epitome of great artist, and he immediately became my first kind of the first artist that kind of made me want to do this, and I'm still my biggest influence. I mean, every time I pick up a guitar, I'm probably trying to play something, from one of his records or something, but he is still to this day my biggest musical hero.
Okay. Talk about your new single. I know you made an announcement. Talk about your new song.
Speaking of Steve Warner, Steve wrote my new single, and it's called "Busy Doing Nothing." He co-wrote it with Mac McAnally, who is another hero of mine, great songwriter and artist. So it's called "Busy Doing Nothing," and it's an up-tempo song. I love it, and I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Great, awesome. And finally, I do want to ask you this question. Country music has evolved. I'm not going to ask you whether you like how it's changed over the years, but who's your favorite country artist in 2021?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
First of all, are you a fan of how country has changed? I mean, maybe that's an unfair question.
Well,
it's obviously a lot different than in the early 90s.
What's tough is when you try to put everything in a box, it makes it sound like, well, country has become this whole other thing. And I don't think that's the case. I think, when you got trends, and there's always going to be trends and things are evolving and changing. But I think rather than talking about how country music has changed, I think you just kind of have to look at everybody's music and decide for yourself, is it a great song or is it not a great song? Is he a great singer, or is this record a record that is great, or is it not? It's like I heard Reba McEntire say one time, there's 2 kinds of music, good and bad, and that really, at the end of the day, I think that's what you have to do. You have to go, is this moving me or is it not moving me? So there's always music out there that's not really my cup of tea. But there's usually something floating around out there that I really like a lot. I'll say I really love where Miranda Lambert's headspace is right now. I like what she's doing, because she looks like she's having fun and she's being honest. And if you want to talk about styles, I'd say she might just be one of the few real country sounding acts that are still out there.
I agree. Final question. I don't want to loop around to something that's kind of a sour note, but your father was tragically killed about 5 years ago. How has that event made you appreciate family, made you appreciate music, and being able to go out on like this Saturday and perform. Do you think about your dad in those moments, and what's that been like? Obviously it's been tough.
I think anytime you lose somebody, you appreciate family even more. I think as if you can say this, there have been a lot of good things that have been brought to mind over the years as a result of his loss. And I did the eulogy at his funeral, which was really, really tough. But in writing it made me realize, even though my dad was struggling alcoholic, for most of my life, and didn't ever get to, attain his goals, which was music. I got two things from my dad that I think ultimately saved my life. And that was really the summary. In summary, that was my eulogy. And one was the outdoors. My dad, early on, my first memories of my dad were fishing with my brother, and we would fish, and we were always outside doing something, and so that is still going on in my life. I feel like if I don't incorporate, the outdoors into my world on a regular basis, I'll lose part of myself. And the other is music. I don't know where I'd be with both of those things. And so I think, to answer your question, I think of my dad probably 4 or 5 times a day. And he's just always in my memory and always in my thoughts. And so I don't honestly, and really, to bring this full circle, I got my first record deal because of my dad's connection, which led me here. So it's, I'm extremely grateful for my dad every day of my life.
I think that's a great way to finish off the interview. Bryan, we really appreciate the time. We look forward to Saturday. And I think your story really will resonate with a lot of Central Iowans. So again, we look forward to the run. We look forward to the performance, and we'll see you Saturday.
Okay, Cory. Thank you so much for your time, man.
All right. This is StoryCounty.News with Bryan White. I'm Cory Brada. We'll talk to you soon.